Shark attacks can result in devastating injuries. The sheer power and predatory nature of sharks mean that in some instances, these creatures can inflict brutal wounds, taking chunks out of a person's body, or a shark biting off a person's head. Hit that like button and subscribe right now. In today's episode, we go over 3 times people in the water have been decapitated by sharks. Welcome to Final Affliction. As the war in Ukraine raged, 23-year-old Russian Vladimir Popov decided to leave his home country of Russia. He wanted to avoid compulsory conscription into the armed forces. It was not the life he wanted for himself, and his father, Yuri, didn't want his son to risk his life fighting in battle. Because of this, the two of them moved to Egypt. They left behind Vladimir's mother, who remained at the family home in Balashika, near Moscow, and Vladimir's girlfriend, Anastasia. They headed to Egypt's Red Sea coast. They were finding their feet, enjoying the quiet life. Vladimir found work online as an IT consultant. It was the perfect way to work remotely from the comfort of his own home. The arrangement seemed to be working for the young man and his father, but it wouldn't be long before tragedy would strike. On the 8th of June 2023, just months after moving to Egypt, Yuri and Vladimir walked down to the sea next to Dream Beach Hotel at the Egyptian resort of Hurghada. This picturesque town stretches for almost 30 miles along the Red Sea coastline. The location is stunning. White and golden sandy beaches line the turquoise waters. Luxury yachts and motorboats moor up just offshore, and holidaymakers soak up the sun from the comfort of their sunbeds. Vladimir thought he had struck gold by moving to such a beautiful location. He entered the water that fateful day, heading out for a swim that was to be his last. The calm sea was inviting, the air temperature warm, and the water cool. Vladimir swam outwards from the beach in the safe swimming zone. Several other bathers were enjoying the water at the same time. Then there was a shout. Someone had seen something. Everyone's worst nightmare was coming true. Something that we all think about when we enter the water. The clear image of a dorsal fin breaking through the surface. Everyone made a mad dash for the beach. But as Vladimir turned to swim back to shore, he felt a sharp tug on his leg and let out a cry in pain. What followed was a devastating and truly shocking attack. Not often is an animal attack witnessed by hundreds just meters from the victim, but that's exactly what happened to Vladimir. As people heard Vladimir's cries, they stood up from their seats and looked out across the water. Just 20 feet from the beach, Vladimir was being thrashed around by a huge shark. As he was briefly let go, people could see the terrifying dorsal fin circling the young man. Then he was dragged underwater. He fought back, though. He could be seen trying to push the shark away from him, but it was too agile, too quick. It was too powerful. There was a crashing and a bubbling, a boiling of the water as Vladimir was dragged out of sight. The large gray body of the shark arched out of the water. Vladimir's legs were seen kicking in the air above the surface as he was tumbled and turned upside down. He was spun in circles like a washing machine. Then he resurfaced again. Dizzied and disoriented, Vladimir began to make a few strokes towards the shore. How terrified he must have felt, not being able to see the shark, knowing it was somewhere below him, knowing that it was likely coming back for more, circling around his legs before coming in for the kill. The beach was tantalizingly close. He was surrounded in a cloud of red, his own blood pouring into the Red Sea. He made a few anxious strokes forwards. People could see the nervousness in his body language. They could see he wasn't sure what to do, which way to turn. Vladimir could see his father on dry land. He could see the crowd of people that had gathered at the water's edge, but no one was coming for him. "Papa," he cried out, "help me." But there was nothing his father could do. A rescue boat was launched by lifeguards as soon as the attack unfolded. They motored towards Vladimir as he bobbed in the water for a few heart-stopping seconds. Then the shadow of the enormous shark emerged beneath him once more. It hadn't finished with him yet. Its jaws opened wide as it came up from below. It grabbed Vladimir again, this time around his torso, and dived deep underwater with the young Russian in its jaws. Witnesses reported seeing Vladimir's limp and lifeless body resurface again and again as the shark continued to consume him. Over the next 2 hours, the shark tormented the crowd, pulling and tugging at Vladimir's body. It was truly a nightmare for everyone involved. A lifeguard by the name of Mohammed reportedly swam towards Vladimir and another tourist in the water during the attack. He could see the water surrounding Vladimir was full of blood. He could see how torn up Vladimir was. As he had raised an arm, Mohammed saw the man's hand was missing. He almost dropped the body back into the sea when he noticed the shark had torn his head off. The shark also ripped apart the man's chest. Huge bites were missing from the abdomen as well. It was the most horrifying sight he has ever seen. It was clear Vladimir had already passed away, so instead, he focused his attention on a tourist woman who was swimming close to Vladimir. She was in a state of shock, barely able to move. Mohammed grabbed her under the arms and pulled her back to the shore. There she was comforted and tended to by beachgoers. When the shark had had its fill, authorities were able to capture it. They dragged long nets out behind speedboats and circled the shark. It became trapped and was pulled to shore. It was an enormous tiger shark, measuring 10 feet long. Its distinctive markings were visible across its powerful body. As it was pulled onto the sand, its fate was now sealed. A crowd gathered around to see what a killer shark looks like. Then they began beating it, holding metal bars and wooden sticks. Men began hitting the shark repeatedly across its head and face. The shark attempted to get away, its body powerless on dry land. It flapped its tail and writhed around, desperate for water. After both brutal deaths, the tiger shark was opened up. Inside her stomach were some of Vladimir's remains. It was a gruesome discovery. Vladimir's head and several other body parts were inside the belly. But another discovery may have explained her aggressive behavior and the reason for the devastating attack. Inside her were baby sharks. Tiger sharks lay eggs internally, which then hatch inside the mother. The babies survive inside her until they are ready to be born around 16 months later. Marine expert and fellow Russian Dmitry Orlov came to his own conclusion about what happened and why the shark attacked Vladimir. He believed that being so large and heavily overloaded, her typical prey may have been too quick for her. It was far easier for her to hunt humans who were relatively slow and defenseless in the water. However, biologically and ecologically, this doesn't seem to make sense. But Dmitry believed that his tiger shark was no stranger to human flesh. The year before Vladimir's death, a tiger shark attacked 2 female tourists, an Austrian and a Romanian, in the same location. Other experts have claimed that the shark's behavior may have been influenced by the rising sea temperatures of the Red Sea. She could have been migrating to the Gulf of Suez and cooler waters. Following the attack, Yuri spoke of his son's death. He held no grudge against the Egyptian government and remarkably said that it was tragically Vladimir's destiny to be eaten by the shark. An unusual comment, but one that likely made dealing with his son's death easier to handle. Back in Russia, Vladimir's mother learned of the terrible events. Her son had moved to Egypt to avoid a premature death. He had his whole life ahead of him, and now his mother's world came crashing down. After the forensic examination of Vladimir's body and his remains, Yuri was given permission to cremate him and return the ashes to his homeland of Russia, Vladimir's final resting place. As for the shark, authorities wanted the huge specimen preserved. Perhaps it could serve as some form of education for visiting tourists and locals alike. A team of 5 embalming experts took on the task of mummifying the shark so that it could be put on display in the local museum. The Red Sea has been plagued by shark attacks over the decades. Maybe now it is time to do something about them, as overfishing is removing sharks' prey sources such as large fish like tuna. They turn to other potential prey to satiate their appetite. Moving closer to shore, these incredible predators are more likely to attack again than ever before. Perhaps the Red Sea resorts should install shark nets to protect bathers. a tactic that has proved effective in other parts of the world. Following Vladimir's attack, the beaches were closed. The sea emptied as tourists left the resorts. But a couple of days later, the local government deemed the waters safe again. Speedboats and safety divers maintained a presence along the coastline to reassure visitors and to continue to scout for any potential dangers. But how long will it be before people forget about this tragic event? How long will it be before disaster strikes again, before another innocent swimmer meets their terrifying final affliction? What do you like to do when you go to the beach? Do you like to relax on the golden sand? Maybe you like to read a book or go paddling in the sea. Well, for some people, diving is their passion. Swimming amongst the different types of marine wildlife and exploring old wrecks that have sunk below the waves can be really exciting, but also really dangerous, as this one man found out in today's story. Manuel Lopez had lived on the coast of Mexico his entire life. He was proud of where he lived and his heritage that came with his place of birth. The 56-year-old man loved his home and wouldn't trade it for the world. However, his life wasn't necessarily an easy one. Taking advantage of where he lived, Manuel learned from an early age how to dive for the mollusks that lived on the bottom of the ocean floor. His father, who was a fisherman himself, taught Manuel just how important fishing was and how it could earn him a livelihood if it was done right. Manuel took all of his father's teachings to heart, and over the years, he practiced fishing and diving for mollusks until he was able to do both quite expertly. What he really loved was diving into the ocean in search of scallops, mussels, and all sorts of other shellfish. He found the thrill of diving down into the water exciting. He never knew what he might find or what kind of animals he might come across. Of course, as the years went by, Manuel also learned of the dangers that diving for shellfish could bring. Strong riptides could take him out to sea, where he could potentially end up getting lost. Murky waters could also bring danger, as Manuel could get lost in the silt and not know which direction to go in order to get back to safety. But the most dangerous thing of all were the predatory animals that lurked in the water: sharks. Mexico is home to a diverse range of shark species, with nearly 100 different types found in its waters. The Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea are particularly important areas for these animals, as they serve as breeding and feeding grounds for many species. There are some species of shark which live on the Mexican coast that are fairly calm and non-aggressive towards humans. These are the whale shark, the largest shark in the world, hence its name, and the nurse shark is also relatively harmless to humans, often dwelling on the bottom of the ocean in shallow waters to hunt for small fish. However, it is the more aggressive sharks that people need to worry about. Species such as the bull shark, which are actually responsible for most of the attacks in Mexico, the hammerhead sharks, and the one that many people find the scariest of all, the great white shark. Whilst common media has made them out to be more vindictive than they actually are, considering they are just animals acting on instinct, great whites are still a shark that nobody should mess with, as they are incredibly dangerous. However, sometimes circumstances push people to do things that might not necessarily be the wisest decision at the time. This is, unfortunately, what happened to Manuel. It was February 2023, coming into Mexico's springtime, and Manuel and his fellow fishermen were all busy, trying to collect as many mollusks and fish as possible so that they could sell them to local restaurants to earn a wage. However, there had been reports of quite a few sharks migrating into the waters around the coast so that they could hunt for fish and give birth to their young. Because of the number of sharks that were being reported in the area, including great whites, the fishermen, and especially the divers, were warned not to enter the ocean, as they could potentially be putting themselves at risk. For a little while, Manuel and his fellow fishermen stayed out of the ocean, as they didn't want to risk their lives. In times where people like Manuel can't work, the Mexican government gives out a stipend of 7,200 pesos, which is roughly $400 per year. However, this is not a lot to live off of, especially if the fishermen have a family to support. As the days passed by, there quickly became a shortage of seafood in the area, which meant that demand for the items were at an all-time high. Manuel found himself being drawn to the ocean to go diving for shellfish again, as he knew he could get a good price for his catch, and he needed the money to help support his family. Finally, deciding that he would rather take the risk to try and get a bit more money, Manuel put on his diving suit, a full gray suit, and went diving near San Jose Beach in Tabare Bay. He didn't have any diving equipment, preferring to hold his breath as he dived down to a depth of around 59 feet so that he could collect axe tripe, a mollusk which is like a scallop, from the ocean floor. It was a shellfish which Manuel had collected multiple times before, and he knew where to look to get the best fish. Despite the dangers, things were going well for Manuel for a little while. The diver was collecting the shellfish at quite a fast rate, and he was looking forward to the large amount of money he would hopefully be getting after he had sold all of his catch. Jose Bernal was another fisherman who was out with Manuel at the time. He was diving into the water from the boat that they had brought along and was collecting the mollusks as well. He had decided to get out of the water for a little while so that he could rest. However, Manuel felt that he was finding quite a lot of axe tripe, and he didn't want to lose the spot where he was finding all of the shellfish. It was whilst Manuel was diving to the ocean floor, though, that something happened that no one could have expected. As he was relaxing on the boat, Jose noticed an odd shape in the water. At first, the fisherman couldn't make out what the shape was, but as it got closer, Jose quickly felt panic taking a hold of him. He knew that the massive shape, which looked to be around 19 feet long, could only possibly be one thing: a shark. After coming to this conclusion, Jose's terror increased tenfold. He had no clue how he was supposed to alert Manuel to the danger, as he was still underwater, and Jose did not want to get back into the water with the dangerous shark nearby. The fisherman could only hope that Manuel wouldn't attract the shark's attention, and that it would simply swim on by. But that wasn't the case. Manuel, not having a clue what was happening or what was coming close to him, was quickly running out of air. Deciding that he needed to go back to the surface for air, Manuel began swimming up, taking his haul with him. However, in just one moment, everything changed for the worse. In one moment, Manuel was swimming happily, and then in the next moment, the massive great white shark came swimming out of the murky water, bursting through the water at 35 miles per hour, and in just one bite, the shark separated Manuel's head and part of his shoulders from his body. Jose had witnessed the entire event, and he could not believe what he had just seen. There was nothing that he could do for Manuel, as he was most certainly not alive anymore. With nothing else to do, Jose returned to the mainland, where he informed the proper authorities about what had happened. But why did the shark go after Manuel? Well, whilst great whites do attack up to 5 to 10 humans every year, they usually only take an experimental bite before moving on, as they are not actually that interested in hunting people. Instead, the great white's usual prey consists of seals, sea lions, dolphins, and turtles. However, every now and then they can get confused due to how people look in the water when they are swimming. Thinking that it was a source of food, the shark will attack the person, which could lead to some very serious injuries, or, in the worst case scenario, a fatality. This is sadly the most likely thing that happened to Manuel. The fisherman was most likely just unlucky to be in the water at the same time as the massive shark was swimming nearby. And whilst it wasn't necessarily anybody's fault what had happened to Manuel, it is important to remember that the ocean is the home of animals like sharks, and that it is always better to play it safe than to risk a life to dive into the ocean when these incredible creatures are nearby. Sadly, all that could be done for Manuel after the incident was to try and collect the body from the water, and then, once that was done, bury him in a proper grave. Fishermen spotted a shark off the coast of the western Mexico coastal town of Paredon, Colorado, 2 weeks after Manuel Lopez was attacked and killed by a shark while fishing for mollusks. This shark is thought to be the one responsible for decapitating Manuel. It has been spotted several times since the fatal attack, and authorities have been unable to kill it. This massive man-eating shark is still on the loose in the waters around Mexico, waiting to bring another innocent diver like Manuel Lopez to their terrifying final affliction. The Chilean abalone, popularly known as locos, is a species of large edible sea snail native to the Pacific coastlines of Chile and Peru. Locos are renowned for their delectable flavor and tender meat, making them a prized culinary delicacy. Fishermen relish the opportunity to gather locos, mainly to supply local markets and restaurants with these savory delights. They venture into the vast Pacific and explore its rocky shores, tide pools, and submerged crevices in search of these prized gastropods. However, not all fishermen emerge victorious, as occasionally formidable predators from deep beneath turn the ocean into a deadly battleground while patrolling their watery domain. It was January the 5th, 1980, a serene and overcast Saturday morning, when Jose Lorenz Miranda embarked on his fishing expedition in the southern Pacific Ocean at Punta Negra. Clad in a sleek black neoprene wetsuit, he resembled a mysterious figure blending seamlessly with the maritime environment. As he and his crew stepped onto a sturdy 7-meter wooden boat, it creaked softly under their weight, echoing the anticipation in the air. With a sense of purpose, they steered the boat further into the sea and ventured away from the familiar coastline. A few meters from shore, they anchored the boat and got to work. With unwavering focus, Jose tightened the grip on his inline accumulator tank and tools. In his left hand, he carried a sturdy collecting bag, its open jaws eagerly awaiting the bountiful marine wonders that he would discover. In his right hand, a trusty pry bar dangled from his grip, poised to assist in the careful extraction of the elusive locos hidden beneath the rocks. Standing on the edge of the boat, Jose inhaled deeply and, with a leap, broke the surface tension and plunged into the embrace of the aquatic realm. Underwater, a new world unfurled. He navigated through shimmering curtains of sunlight, revealing a symphony of colors beneath the depths. Schools of fish darted gracefully, their scales glistening like precious gems. With each stroke, he moved deeper, exploring rocky crevices and sandy beds. For the next 35 minutes, Jose went on collecting locos, occasionally utilizing the pry bar to spear curious fish that swam too close. However, as Jose surveyed his spoils, a flicker of dissatisfaction crossed his face. Though his new catch was impressive, it did not yet match the image of abundance he held in his mind. A relentless thirst for more gnawed at his determination, driving him to seek greater fulfillment. Resurfacing in disappointment, he climbed back aboard the boat and together with the crew set sail once more, guided by an unwavering belief that there was yet another haven just beyond the horizon, where an extraordinary catch awaited them. Guided by instinct and experience, the crew found a new hunting ground which was 20 meters from shore. They anchored the boat in the midst of an underwater oasis, which unfortunately was also within 150 meters of a sea lion hollout. His crew and fellow fishermen, whose boats peppered across the seascape, observed with curiosity as Jose donned his gear and prepared to dive into the unknown. After swimming 5 meters from the vessel, he angled his body obliquely and began his descent to the deep. However, a minute into his voyage to the seafloor, Jose's peaceful dive was shattered by a sudden surge of violence. Jose turned to his left, only to be met by the open mouth of an ancient predator whose sleek form had silently sliced through the calm water, a massive great white shark. He instinctively raised his left hand to shield himself from the onslaught of the relentless shark, who clearly wanted to eat him. But fate had cruel intentions, and the shark's voracity could not be stopped. A clash of wills ensued, a life and death struggle in the watery realm. In a gruesome display of violence, the predator's jaws clamped, enclosing Jose's left arm and head within its mouth. Its razor-sharp teeth tore through his flesh, tearing chunks of his upper torso and left arm away. In the midst of the struggle, The predator sank its teeth into Jose's inline accumulator tank, but it was unable to puncture it. The shark clamped down with more and more pressure until suddenly the tank gave in and exploded. His crew and the other fishermen watched from their boats as a gory mess of red bubbles began to ascend from the depths. At that chilling moment, they watched as the head of a colossal shark broke the water surface, revealing its presence a mere 3 meters from Jose's boat. The scene that unfolded before the horrified onlookers was nothing short of a nightmare. Dangling eerily from the beast's menacing jaws hung the remnants of Jose's decapitated upper torso, left arm, and shoulder, which were connected only by a fragment of his shredded wetsuit. In that grim moment, time seemed to stand still as the fishermen grappled with the shock and horror that enveloped them. The air grew heavy with an indescribable mix of disbelief, anguish, and primal fear. With a sense of urgency and determination, nearby boats swiftly converged upon the harrowing scene as the relentless shark continued its menacing dance, circling the lifeless body and periodically mouthing it as a grim display of dominance. The motormen aboard the approaching vessels, driven by a mix of instinct and courage, unleashed the roaring power of their motors in a desperate attempt to deter the predator. The group of revving engines echoed across the water, creating an act of defiance in the face of primal terror. Their efforts yielded partial success as the shark momentarily veered away, providing a narrow window for the crew aboard Jose's boat to recover the mangled body. They grappled with the weight of their fallen comrade. However, the shark's insatiable hunger could not be quelled. It seized an opportune moment and lunged once again, this time targeting the body's right arm in a desperate attempt to reclaim its prize. But it didn't stop there. The shark swam about 15 meters from the boat and, in a heart-stopping spectacle, surged forward and tried to ram the boat at high speeds, its head thrust out of the water with its menacing jaws agape. The boat quivered under the immense force, twisting it with a powerful force that turned it 90 degrees, a testament to the raw strength of the predator and its willingness to protect its kill. Desperate to evade the relentless predator, the boatman frantically ignited the motor, hoping to steer the vessel to safety. But once again, with astonishing force, the shark launched a series of violent thrusts, ramming the prow of the boat with its formidable head. The impact reverberated through the vessel, threatening to shatter the thin barrier between life of the crew and the abyss below. The crew on board held their breaths as their bodies trembled from the ordeal. The shark's snout was even with the prow of the boat, and its tail was seen to extend about a meter beyond the stern. Its width matched that of the boat, showing just how big it was. As the boat's engine purred to life, the boatman skillfully guided the vessel towards shallower waters in a last-ditch effort to outmaneuver their relentless pursuer. But glancing over their shoulders, the shark was still in hot pursuit. Fortunately, its relentless pursuit led it into treacherous, shallow depths. And there, in a moment of defeat, the predator's voracious journey came to an unexpected end as its massive form became grounded, its predatory prowess foiled by the changing tides. In a surge of collective relief, the crew seized the opportunity and their chance for survival and hastily abandoned their vessel before the shark could free itself. Just as the last crew member had safely made it out of the water onto land, the shark had thrashed its way back into deeper water and disappeared. An autopsy on Jose's body at the Los Vilos Hospital on January 9, 1980, showed decapitation at the 7th cervical vertebra, including amputation of the shoulder and left arm. The clavicle had been torn off, as was part of the scapula, and no shark tooth fragments were recovered. It was estimated that the great white shark responsible for the fatal attack on Jose Lorenas Miranda was more than 7 meters long, which would make this shark one of the biggest recorded great whites in the world. His attack is a reminder that as much as the expanse oceans yield immeasurable treasures, they too yield perils in equal measure. Shark attacks like these are what truly give sharks such a feared reputation. A shark attack so brutal is hard to write off as an attack based on false identity. The shark knew what it was hunting and seemed to enjoy the taste. Sadly, for Jose Miranda, he was one of the few who came face to face with one of the most ferocious predators in the ocean. His final moments looking into the shark's jaws before meeting his terrifying final affliction.